Hello and welcome to Sovereign Motherhood. My name is Charlotte and I'm so grateful that you're here. I am a mother to an almost 5-year-old little girl, and over the last few years, we've been rewriting our entire story of what life gets to look like. So, as you can probably see by these photos, our lives have been far from normal. We travel, world school, we live close to nature, but it definitely did not start out this way.
Hello, I'm Ivona, solo mom of two. This masterclass is not going to be about being perfect or following rules. It's about sovereignty, trusting yourself, breaking cycles, and creating freedom for your family. We want to share how we went from survival to sovereignty and how you can too.
So today we're going to be taking you behind the highlight reel and into our real process of how we actually got here, what we had to release, and how we learned to trust life again. So this path is, as Ivana shared, not about perfection. It's really about remembering your own power to create something different for yourself.
When I first became a mama, I did everything by the book. I thought safety meant hospitals, monitors, checklists. I thought good mothers followed instructions. I imagined my baby in a crib beside me, moving her to her own room at 6 months, breastfeeding for 1 year, because that's what everyone said was right. But the birth didn't go as I hoped. It wasn't a huge horror story, but something inside me felt violated, rushed, and unseen. I remember lying in bed afterward thinking, I did everything right, so why does it feel wrong? Weeks later, my baby wouldn't stop crying. I was so sleep deprived, I could barely stand. She obviously needed milk. I needed rest. And that night, I just couldn't fight it anymore. I laid her on my chest, she started feeding, and we both fell asleep like that. When I woke up, she was peaceful. I was peaceful. And I realized motherhood didn't have to be this complicated. From that night on, I stopped outsourcing my intuition. She never slept in another room. She didn't win on someone else's timeline. If you think about it, where in your life are you letting someone else's timeline override your intuition?
So, speaking of going by somebody else's timing, I grew up in a constant hustle of modern day life. I grew up as the good girl who did everything right. I always got straight A's in school. I was in all the talent shows and all of the clubs. I was the student leader, the teacher's pet, and the one that everyone could count on. And on paper, I looked really confident, but inside, I was actually running on fumes and pressuring myself to be perfect at everything because I thought that was how I would earn love. My life was a constant hustle from school to dance to dinner to homework and maybe 5 minutes in between to breathe if I was lucky. And somewhere along the way, my nervous system learned that rest had to be earned and my worthiness of love had to be proved by being perfect, which of course was impossible to hold up. This anxiety actually didn't start in high school. It started back when I was a baby. My parents used the cry it out method, and my body memorized the lesson when I was little that nobody's coming, the world isn't safe, and you have to fight to prove your worthiness. So I would chase perfection, grades, degrees, and following the right path. And my chest felt so tight, I just wanted to give up on all of it sometimes. So maybe you've lived a similar story, always being the helpful one, the high achiever, and praised for how perfect you are, but you're quietly afraid that it'll all fall apart if you stop. I just want to tell you that your worth is not tied to a paycheck or a report card. You don't have to outrun your exhaustion to deserve a slow morning or a deep breath. So I want to ask you, are you rushing through your life trying to arrive at a goalpost that's not even yours? A lot of us are chasing a version of success that might not even be our own, just what we think others want from us or what we think we're supposed to do in order to prove that we're good enough.
I personally am still learning how to teach my nervous system to calm down still today for over 30 years. So it's an ongoing process. After leaving an abusive relationship, I had to start from zero, just me and my 1 year old. It felt like life shattered. There were days I wondered how I'd even make it through the next morning. But underneath the exhaustion, there was always this tiny spark, like my soul whispering, this gets to be your rebirth. A few years later, I found myself pregnant again, still a solo mama. And the nausea in my first trimester was unbearable. I couldn't cook because even the smell from my fridge made me sick. My daughter was 3 years old, only wanted to eat what I ate. So for weeks, we survived on cream crackers and water in a cold, gray England winter. I honestly felt my body shutting down, my mind spiraling, and I remember thinking, is this really my rock bottom again? And yet, in that moment, something inside of me refused to stay there. When I closed my eyes, I remembered being in Brazil with the sun on my skin and a lot of music and dancing barefoot and drinking coconuts. And I saw a version of myself that was alive and free and feminine and powerful. And I thought, if she existed once, she can exist again. And that memory became my lifeline. It reminded me that the same woman who'd survived before was still here, just buried under fear and fatigue. If your intuition whispered today, would you trust it even before life felt ready?
I can relate to this a lot. I've also found myself at rock bottom a lot of times, actually, lots of different rock bottoms. This is what my life looked like after I finally stopped chasing the life that others wanted for me. I found myself feeling completely lost. A little bit of relief and liberation, but also I would get caught up in this loop of anxiety, thinking I'm so stressed about my life and I'm not moving anything forward. And I would feel paralyzed by that and I wouldn't take any action. And then I would spiral into depression. And then I would get anxious about how depressed I was and how I wasn't moving anything forward again. So it was an exhausting loop and this constant battle between the part of me that knew I was meant for more and the part that was still attached to my old identity. Even after having a big spiritual awakening on some solo travels that showed me what was possible for myself and that I was meant for more, I still kept clinging to that old version of me who was actually kind of almost comfortable in the pain and the struggle, because as much as I hated that darkness, it was also familiar and it was my comfort zone. And so there was almost this safety in being the victim and telling this story that everything was happening to me. I was bartending, I was drinking every night, living in a windowless basement with no light, stealing tips from other bartenders because I felt like I did more work than them. And I was really just trying to save up everything that I could to escape this life. I was cheating on people that I said I loved because I didn't know how to speak my truth and just share that I needed out. I wasn't a bad person, but I felt like it sometimes. Ultimately, I realized I was actually just a person who was desperate for relief and this feeling of a fresh start. And I was trying to feel powerful in the ways that I knew. What I wish I had known then is that guilt and shame are not punishments that we deserve. And those feelings of, I know that I'm meant for more and I'm better than this, are just invitations to step into that version of you that you know you can be. So you are not defined by your worst moments. You're the one who gets to decide what comes next. You can't change every single thing that led you to this point, but you can choose how you move forward.
Speaking of mistakes, even though I don't consider my daughter's mistakes, obviously, when I got pregnant the second time and I was still a solo mama, I felt ashamed. And I think because of that, I made myself feel small. And during my pregnancy, I realized how much I was still waiting for permission. Even when I didn't trust my midwife, I still kept asking questions and feeling anxious. And I was asking for permission to birth at home, to do it my way. But deep down, I knew I didn't need permission. I just needed courage. I was asking permission from friends, from people who didn't even understand my path, and everyone had an opinion, and none of it felt right in my body. When I decided to go to Brazil while pregnant and broke, everyone thought I'd lost it. They said, "You're being irresponsible. You should wait. Now's not the time." But I spent enough time waiting for permission from people who didn't live my life. And the truth is, I didn't want logic. I just wanted life. I knew I missed the sun and the taste of fresh coconuts and the warmth on my skin. And I realized it wasn't even about the trip. It was just about remembering who I am when I'm not asking for permission to exist. I stopped asking, can I? And I started asking, how can I? I visualized myself there every day. I could smell the ocean. I could see my daughter laughing in the sand. And somehow it unfolded. And that trip changed everything because I came back feeling more radiant and more confident and more me than I felt in years. That's when I understood that nobody gets to tell you when it's your time. You claim it first, and then life rearranges to meet you there. Now I'm asking you, what dream have you been waiting for permission to pursue?
Amazing. I think we both have similarities of being drawn to the sun for our healing journeys. After my really dark rock bottom season, I knew that I was meant for more. During those earlier solo travels that I had mentioned, I really felt the pulse of freedom calling me to start fresh on an island, living from purpose instead of from fear. But when I was back home, I fell back into my old cycles and this constant feeling of waiting to be perfectly ready. Months kept passing and I never fully felt that feeling of, okay, now it's time. I just kept feeling, oh, maybe one day I'll take the leap. So eventually I just decided to jump before I felt fully ready. I quit bartending and booked a one-way ticket across the world to an island. I had just started a business that had not made any money yet, and I had no idea exactly when and how it would work. I just kept trusting if I take the next right step, it's all going to work out. Everyone thought I was a little bit crazy, kind of like the people you shared in your life, Ivana, and maybe I had lost it a little bit, but sometimes you do have to lose your old life, right, in order to step into the real one. I started falling back in love with myself. I would look at myself in the mirror every morning and say, I see you. And I would just look myself into the eyes and remind myself of my strength to keep going, even when I didn't believe in it. I kept doing all the courageous, awkward things that really scared me, like singing karaoke in Singapore and posting my truth online instead of waiting to feel perfect. I just started showing up messy and brave in all ways. And every tiny act of courage was like a vote for that new version of me that did the brave things. So I started to learn the net doesn't appear before you jump. It appears because you jumped. I had to leap first in order to realize I I was going to be okay. So I'd love to ask, where in your life do you feel like you're waiting to feel secure before you go for it? Because you're never going to reach a moment where you don't feel scared at all. You're actually just going to do it while scared and trust that the net's going to appear as soon as you take the leap.
That actually reminds me of my free birth. After I came back from Brazil, something in me changed. I didn't just feel lighter, I felt sovereign. I'd spent so long looking to others for guidance, and suddenly I realized I could guide myself. I traveled to Romania and I surrounded myself with sunshine, good food, and warm water, things that made me feel alive and nurtured. I realized if no one else could take care of me, I could still create a life that felt like care. So when I came home, I prepared for birth differently. This time, I didn't want anyone telling me what to do. I started learning everything I could about natural birth, about my body, about what it meant to be undisturbed. Friends thought I was crazy for even considering free birth, and they kept saying, what if something goes wrong? But I was more afraid of repeating the first birth, of feeling powerless again. I decided if no one else could hold me the way I needed, I would hold myself. I prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, not from fear, but from deep trust that I can actually do this by myself. When the moment came, it was nighttime, it was quiet, it was dark, it was me, the water, some twinkle lights, and eventually my baby. It was the most empowering moment of my life. Not because it was easy, because it wasn't, it was intense, but because it was mine. Birth taught me that when I trust myself, life meets me there with grace. And now, if you think about it, what choice might look irrational to others but feels right to you?
I love that you trusted yourself and what you were feeling called towards for birth. And that's the thing is this isn't about free birth or hospital birth. It's about you being in your sovereign power, choosing what feels true to you instead of choosing from fear. So backtracking a little bit, just this girl that moved to an island, life was already really starting to teach me how to let go. So I found out that I was pregnant a few months after moving to that island, halfway around the world from my family at the very beginning of the COVID lockdowns. Everyone around me was starting to freak out. Some people were going back home to their families. My family was telling me the world is ending and you need to come home. Meanwhile, I was taking a positive pregnancy test. So while flights were being canceled and borders were closing and everyone said, come on, it's safer in Canada, my intuition said, no, stay here. You're going to be more yourself here. And that's just what felt true for me. So that was my first big act of surrender throughout my pregnancy, of just trusting my own knowing over the world's fear and panic. So pregnancy really stripped away everything that I thought I could control, and birth finished that job. I had the perfect plan. I would be breathing in zen and flowy, and I would feel at ease the whole time. And it would be such a spiritual birth, right? Because I would look so calm. And then labor honestly roared through me like a storm, and it was loud and messy and raw. And I felt like I was doing it all wrong. I was crumbling, and I was like, what is this? This isn't right. I should be more zen and peaceful. There was a moment where I just thought, this isn't how spiritual birth should look. I should be doing it differently. But that was actually my spiritual lesson, that divinity is in the mess too. This was perfect. And spirituality was actually surrendering to the journey instead of fighting against it because it should look different and you had a different attachment to the outcome. So I learned surrender isn't passive. It's not about giving up, but it really is this crumbling of everything you thought you could control and leaning into an active trust and a partnership with life that says, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I trust and I know that I will. So maybe you're in a season where everything's feeling really uncertain and out of your hands. I want to ask, what if it wasn't falling apart, but actually falling into place? This is your reminder to hold your vision, yes, but let go of the script, because that's where the magic really unfolds. And I would love to ask you, what are you gripping onto and trying to control instead of just allowing it to unfold the way that it's meant to?
That's so beautiful. And I relate to that, especially after my second daughter was born, when everything felt raw again. I was breastfeeding two kids, sleeping in 2 hour stretches, trying to keep up with the house, the business, the emotions of a toddler adjusting to a new baby after a lifetime of being by herself and having me for herself, and to heal a body that didn't feel like mine yet. Some days the noise and the mess felt like too much, like I couldn't breathe. I'd find myself losing patience, then crying because I lost it, until I remembered regulation before perfection. I didn't need to fix everything. I just needed to come back to myself. I started simple, hand on heart, hand on belly, inhale for 4, hold for 2, and exhale for 6. And every time I could feel my body say, we are safe. Our children do not need perfect mothers. They just need regulated ones. Because when we breathe, they also soften. When we are grounded, they feel secure. And I really believe that your regulation is their safety. A calm breath is more powerful than any strategy.
I completely agree. It's so much more about being in our center when we're parenting than it is about saying and doing the perfect thing. We still have our moments, but it's like coming back to that center. I definitely lost my center a lot in the beginning stages of motherhood because I was also going through a lot in my life. I became a single mother when my daughter was 3 or 4 months old, and that was never my plan. I had gripped to this relationship because my parents were divorced, so I didn't want to have my daughter grow up in a broken family. I had all these stories about not wanting to pass that down to her, and I wanted to do better and be better. And yeah, gripped onto a relationship that just really was not meant to last. I tried to stay, I tried to fix it, I tried to make it work, even when my body was screaming at me to leave. Within 5 days of a really big moment in our relationship where I knew I needed to leave, everything was erupting. My body was breaking out. I had a cough, I had a rash, I was itching, I had infections, I had mold poisoning, like everything at the same time. My body was on fire, begging me to listen and trust and take that next right step. And I actually posted all of my symptoms I was experiencing online, asking if anyone knew what I should do to help with these things. And a stranger sent me a screenshot from the book You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And I had never heard of this before. And she's like, this might resonate with you, it might not, but I just wanted to share. Sometimes symptoms can be our body's way of communicating things with us. And so she sent me these descriptions. Itching could mean itching to get out or get away from a situation. And this other symptom could mean that you're dishonoring your own needs. And I was like, this woman doesn't even know my story, but I know my story. And I know that these things are very relevant for me right now. And I am actually itching to get out or get away from something, but I'm trying to ignore that gut feeling. I realized my body's going to keep whispering and then yelling and then screaming these nudges towards me until I finally listen. So I can't actually stay. Otherwise, I would just get sicker and my light would grow dimmer and I'd be showing my daughter that's how you live. So I had to leave. And then my symptoms began to fade. Not instantly that second, but they really started improving so much more as I left and really in rhythm with my courage. My body exhaled as I finally did. My body had been trying to communicate the truth to me before I was willing to hear it. So I'd love to know, is there something that your body has been whispering to you and you keep trying to explain it away? I just want to let you know your body is not betraying you. If you are experiencing hardships, if you are fighting against anything that's been arising, whether it's mental, physical, some of these things are actually our body's trying to communicate to us. So where are you ignoring your intuition? And is your body possibly crying out for you to finally listen?
I absolutely love Louise Hay. I found out about her in my teenage years. In a previous relationship, I actually remember my knee just popped out of its position in bed. I was not even doing anything, and it just did that. And I couldn't move it anymore because it was so painful. I couldn't bend it, I couldn't straighten it. And it kept happening, even sometimes as I was walking. And I remember reading about what it means, and it meant that I'm afraid to move forward. Soon after that, I actually got out of that relationship, and that pain never came back again. And it made me think that my body, again, was trying to show me something that I was refusing to see. So I really believe in power. I was looking, what could your symptoms be telling you about your life situation? 3 months postpartum, I booked flights to Guatemala for a business retreat. I didn't tell anyone other than my daughter, with whom I was dancing joyfully daily. Going to Guatemala! Before I even knew how, but I was doing all the energetic work in preparation for it. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I end up not going, which is the same as where I already was. But when you constantly train your mind to look for all the positive what ifs, just like I did with my pre-birth, and ask yourself, how can I? It actually comes up with answers you wouldn't have thought of if you just think that's impossible, because it makes zero sense on paper. It took 55 hours to get there with a 4-year-old and a newborn and bags stacked higher than me. I still remember standing in the airport where I spent the entire night only to find out I was denied boarding due to my citizenship. I was dizzy from exhaustion and I was thinking, what am I doing? Was this all for nothing? I can't have just gotten to this point to just be sent back home. But I didn't give up until I found a way to still leave the country on the same day. 5 days later, I hiked a volcano for 8 hours with baby strapped to chest and my 4-year-old beside and mostly ahead of me. I wasn't ready. My body was still healing. I was actually just still 3 months postpartum, but I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And when we reached the top, it felt so surreal. Did I just do this? Because I realized strength doesn't appear before you leap. It reveals itself after you do. And every time I've done something that didn't make sense, it's revealed a part of me I didn't know existed. Every single brave decision I've made has taught me that readiness is a myth. You grow into it by moving anyway. So my question to you is, what leap are you postponing because you're waiting to feel ready?
I'm so glad that you came to Guatemala because we ended up hiking that volcano together. And yes, it was so incredible to see our daughters hiking it when they were so young and you with the baby postpartum. It was just so amazing. And even after all of the times that it felt like it wasn't going to work out, I still remember seeing a picture you sent me of your daughters sleeping on the airport floor and then finding out you might not be able to come. And I was like, there's no way that they came this far just to only come this far. So I'm so glad that you kept going. There's a song that says, you don't have to know the way knows the way. That's carried me through a lot recently. And when my daughter was 10 months old, I packed up our bags after living at home with my mom as a single mom for a little bit. And I decided to start traveling again. No plan, no savings, just deep trust. And our first big stop somewhere new was Guatemala. So we ended up on a beach where a hostel released baby turtles into the ocean. And I met the man who was running that turtle release and managing the hostel, who would later become my life partner, raising my daughter with me. And there's no way that I ever could have scripted those life circumstances or known how that would work out. This partnership really didn't come from certainty or from knowing how my path was going to unfold. It just came from following one tiny nudge at a time towards what was meant for me. So your intuition doesn't really reveal like a 75-step plan of what's going to happen when you say yes to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. It doesn't map out for you everything that's going to happen. It shows you that next tiny little thing that you're feeling called to do. And only once you take that tiny step do you see the next tiny step and the next tiny step and the next tiny step. So there's a part of us that wants to know it all first, but I promise you that the path only gets revealed by walking the path. So I would love to ask, what is one small step that your intuition has been nudging you toward? And what would it look like to get out there and start actually living that life now, even if those baby steps don't really make logical sense? You don't have to know how it's all going to fit together. The way already knows the way.
I actually love this. I feel like Guatemala is quite a place now for both of us from different points of view. Since coming to Guatemala, I promised myself I'd never again wait for the how. I would just start living like it was already mine. Before I came to Vietnam, I didn't have the money, but I'd already decided it was happening. I started looking at flights and accommodations. I felt inspired to reach out to a landlady for a place that caught my eye. I was showing my daughter pictures and I asked myself, what steps would I take if I already had the flights booked? And I just took them. I started preparing our luggage, all before I knew exactly how I was going to pay for everything. And again, just like with Guatemala, my daughter and I would jump around the living room chanting, we're going to Vietnam, we're going to Vietnam, even though I still had no idea how. But I could feel it. I could feel the excitement, I could feel the warmth, the adventure, as if it was already real. And the more I believed it, the more life opened doors for me. Every dream I brought to life started that way. And not because I had the perfect plan, just because I lived in the energy of it already happening. When I booked the flights eventually, the feeling of excitement was so familiar because I practice it every day with my daughter. When you embody the future now, the universe has no choice but to catch up. I acted like the woman who already had it figured out, and life matched me because that's what embodiment really is. You're becoming the version of you who already has what she desires. And when I finally landed here, everything felt familiar, as if I've already been here because I've lived it in my body before it happened in my reality. My question to you is, what would it feel like to act today as if your dream was already done?
I completely relate to this. You have to just live like it's already working out, even before you know how it will. And that's something that we've really found as a family now. The three of us have lived in tents and beautiful villas and everything in between. And through it all, we've really kept the same promise to ourselves to live by our values of freedom and family and nature, even when we didn't know how it would all work out. So some seasons we've been overflowing in money, and some seasons have felt really stretchy. And we would always ask ourselves, what matters most to us right now? And we would let that answer guide us, even if, again, we maybe weren't millionaires the entire time. We always found a way. So if money was tight, we would always get creative. We would borrow a car and go camping instead of renting a place or staying in Airbnbs. We would trade luxury for lakes and laughter. And sometimes that actually felt even better to us. And again, it doesn't mean you have to choose between luxury if you like it or camping. You can do both. But for us, we just always found like no matter where we are, as long as we're together as a family and living in our values, it really doesn't matter. We'll always find a way. So I never went back to that old bartending job. It's now been 6 years and my partner is able to be a full-time dad. We just don't work jobs, which is the vibe. But that journey was not always easy. Living from our values to us doesn't require having it all in order to feel safe. It really requires knowing what's non-negotiable for us, embracing what we have here and creating freedom from the inside out. So I just want to say that alignment has a way of opening doors that even money sometimes can't. It's not from the external circumstances. It's really from just deciding I'm going to live within my values no matter what the number on the screen in my bank account or no matter what anybody says is possible. So instead of I can't, like Ivana shared before, I would love for you to just think about what might unlock for you if instead you asked, how can I?
That's actually becoming one of my favorite questions to ask myself, especially when it comes to breaking cycles, because I do not want to repeat the same history. I want to create a new reality for me as a mom and as a woman, but also for my daughters. I grew up thinking love had conditions: be this way, talk like this, dress like that, and then you're worthy of love. And I carried that into adulthood without even realizing it. But becoming a mother made me see it all clearly. I didn't want my daughters growing up thinking they had to earn love or play small to stay safe. So I started healing in front of them. Because in my case, I was not getting out of my cycle of repeating the same patterns. But once I became a mom, I had no other option. I knew that I had to change that. They've seen me apologize and cry and still keep going. They've seen me leave relationships that didn't feel safe and build new patterns of self-trust. They've seen me rewire my self-limiting beliefs from scratch. Obviously not always perfect, but always ongoing. And the best part is that my daughter, my eldest, dances freely in front of me. The same thing I once couldn't do. I was so ashamed and would only be fully myself when I was home alone. And I truly believe that's cycle breaking. Not being perfect, but being real and showing your kids that healing doesn't mean never falling apart. It means knowing how to come back home to yourself every time. So my question for you is, what's one small act of freedom you can model this week?
Beautiful. And honestly, what I found with cycle breaking too is nobody's perfect, right? We learn about cycle breaking. We're like, okay, I don't want to be like my parents, or I don't want to make my children feel that way. And really, that's not going to happen perfectly. But if we can learn from what went well in our childhood and learn from what didn't go very well in our childhood and just take those baby steps, they say kids require for a healthy nervous system 70% of our communications to be healthy. And the other 30%, it's just really about acknowledging where we're still messing up and learning to do better and really making repair a priority. So I love that's been so big for you, is apologizing and yeah, just acknowledging we're all human. So my breaking the cycle has really looked like rewiring our nervous systems, and mine specifically, from hustle culture, getting to give my daughter the slow childhood that I didn't really get to have without that hustle of modern life. I used to think that slowing down meant I would fall behind. I was always late to something and I needed to get my homework done. And now for us, slow mornings are the most sacred thing in the world. We wake up when our bodies feel ready and we learn through play, not from constant pressure of needing to prove that we're worthy and needing to get good grades. When my daughter asks, Mom, come and play with me, I still feel that old urge to just be like, no, I need to check one more task off the list. I'm too busy and I can't. And I'm reminding myself in those moments to just play even for 2 minutes, that I'm safe to slow down. I'm safe to take a deep breath. I'm never going to feel fully complete with everything that there is to do as a mom. But the more I come and sit down just for that moment and say, yes, of course, I'm rewiring that part of me. So I'm learning that presence is my work, and we get to now unschool her and really focus on our values instead of conditioning her into a system of pressure. We get to follow her natural curiosity and let the earth set our rhythm. And every unrushed morning that we experience together as a family reminds my nervous system, you are actually safe to not feel constantly behind. So I would love to ask you, if you removed all of the shoulds from your life, like I should get here on time, I should do that, I should do this, what would your days actually look like if you weren't just pressuring yourself to do all the things you think you're supposed to be doing to feel worthy? Where could you trade one day of rush for just a simple moment of wonder and curiosity, and taking that little moment when your child just needs to look at a blade of grass to be there with them instead of rushing to the next thing? Living in slowness is not lazy, it's healing. And that healing really changes everything, especially if you grew up with a really fast pace.
I can relate to that so much, especially in Romania. Having a clean house is more important than having a happy child or a happy wife. The hustle culture is so deeply ingrained. It's almost as if I'm just here relaxing and the dishes are piled up in the sink, then I am a lazy human being. And I can still hear those voices. They're still present and I'm still healing them because it's been so deeply ingrained. I honestly don't believe in perfect mothers. I believe in present ones. I believe in mothers who listen to their bodies and their babies and their truth. For me, that's meant co-sleeping, extended breastfeeding, unschooling, choices that didn't always make sense to others, but made sense to us. For you, it might look completely different, and that's the beauty of sovereignty. It's saying, I trust myself to know what's right for my family. One day, my daughter said, when I'm going to be a mommy, I'll only have a partner who respects me. And I thought, this is it. This is why it mattered to live free, even when it scared me. Because she's learning from what I model, not what I say. If I would have still been in relationships just because I didn't want people to look at me and think I'm weird or think I'm irresponsible, whatever else they might think, this wouldn't have happened. I would have taught my daughter that That's normal. That's what it means to be a human being. It means to just make yourself feel small, just listen to other people's opinions. But right now, by me choosing to be free, even as a single mom, she's learning that freedom is her birthright, not something to earn, but something to remember. Our kids do not listen to our words. They just mirror our energy. And when they see us trusting ourselves, they learn that they can too. So I invite you to think, where are you pressuring yourself to be perfect instead of being more present?
I can really relate when you talked about the ways that we're living and honoring ourselves, knowing our worth, then imprints on our daughters knowing their worth. I'll share about this in a second, but my mom really tried to pour belief into me, but I could feel that she didn't really believe in herself. We can feel that, right? We can tell them everything, but if we're not showing them what that looks like and modeling it, they might not really learn how to believe in themselves. So ever since I started trusting myself more, dreaming bigger, believing in what's possible for my own life, I've gotten to now become a living permission slip for others to do the same, which has been so magical. Not just people all around the world, which is really cool, but my daughter, our children are always watching us. And from the age of 0 to about 7 years old, especially, their belief system is really being formed and it's very malleable at that time. Those precious years are where they're starting to absorb everything that they learn and see around them as truth. They're learning from our beliefs about money, about love, about respect, about safety, about work, about really life, what life gets to look like. So if they're in school, they're maybe absorbing the teacher's beliefs and the system's belief about how life works. That might align with your belief system, it might not. But really, whoever they're spending the most time with, that's where their story of how the world works is being written. And that's why my story about how the world works was you have to rush through life, get the good grades, go to university, get a degree, get a job in order to be successful and worthy of love. That belief system was shaped for me when I was young, but we can always write new beliefs, which is something we're both really passionate about. So when babies cry and nobody comes, they learn the world isn't safe. When they see us overworking and stressing about money all the time, they learn that they have to fight to survive, right? And they have to be anxious all the time to make things work. When they see us healing and choosing new beliefs and finding creative ways to live within our values, they learn that anything is possible if it's important enough to you. So my mom always told me you can do anything, which was really beautiful. It was great that she poured that belief into me, but because she didn't believe that for herself, and she was taught she had to sacrifice everything that she cared about to do things someone else's way or to be a good mom, that's what I learned. And so I'm rewriting that. And I decided my daughter is going to see me mean what I say. She's going to see me learn to live it, even if I don't know how. She'll see me going after what I want, not to prove anything, but to show her what that self-trust looks like. And look, we really can create anything we desire because here I am figuring out how to do it for me. So what story would you like your children to believe about how life works, about how money works, about how the world works, about how relationships and love work? Because whatever story you pour into is the one that they're going to inherit through you. So make it a story of possibility and of everything that you ever dreamed of.
I love that so much. And Charlotte, you have been my permission slip. So thank you. It's not just your daughter, for sure.
Thank you.
If I had waited for the perfect time, more money, more help, more certainty, I would still be in the same place dreaming of someday. But I said yes, even when it made no sense. And I'm emotional now. I'm sorry. And now my daughters have seen the world before the age of 5, and they've eaten fruits I'd only ever tried as an adult. They watched a volcano erupting nearby while sitting atop another volcano. They met people who speak different languages, and more than that, they've seen what happens when a woman follows her intuition, and that miracles multiply. Time is not infinite. One day becomes 1 year, and before you know it, you've traded presence for perfection. Time is really not guaranteed, it's not promised, and postponed freedom becomes missed memories. So don't wait. Your children are not learning from what you plan or say, they're learning from how you live and what you live. And the moment you choose now, everything begins to shift. So I invite you to think right now, if one day was today, what memory would you create?
Amazing. They say really all you ever have is the present moment. And so if we keep putting our happiness on the other side of something else, oh, once I have this, then I'll enjoy my life. And once I have this or do that or accomplish that, then I'll go and travel or then I'll spend the present time with my kids. But life is happening now. This is their childhood now. And that can feel like a lot of pressure, but also it's like, okay, what tiny step am I going to choose right now that's in alignment with my vision instead of fighting against it? So I just want to share a little bit with you that you really don't have to follow anyone else's path. As we shared at the beginning, sovereign motherhood looks different to every mother. It doesn't have to look like our journeys. Your dream life doesn't have to look like mine or Ivana's. It just has to feel true in your body. Because it also shouldn't look like your parents' dreams for you or the system's dreams for you, unless those are actually your real desires. Every step that we have taken, the leaps of faith, the heartbreaks, the births, the rebuilding, every single moment of that came from really just trusting the next right nudge for us, even when it didn't make sense. You learn who you are through actually getting out there and living. You might not know everything right now about what you want and what you desire out of life and what's true for you. You actually get to start living first and experiencing instead of hiding away. And that's where you start to uncover what's important to you. The planning and thinking about wanting to make changes in your life only gets you so far. If life is feeling really uncertain and maybe scary right now, it could be a sign that you are evolving into something bigger for yourself and you're not meant to stay in your comfort zone and keep playing it small and doing what other people want you to do. You may not be able to see the entire map of what your life is going to look like from here, but you do get to take that one next right step for you that feels true. So quiet down the noise of everyone else's opinions and listen, because your heart already knows the way. I would love to just ask, if you were to quiet down everyone else's ideas for you, what would your heart ask you to do next? You have just heard all the little pieces of our journey, obviously not every detail, but you've heard about the messy middles of growth. You've heard the moments of trust, the times that we let everything fall apart so that something more true to us could be reborn. And if any part of that is hitting home for you, if you have felt the pressure to perform, to receive love, if you felt the fear of change, if you felt the longing for more freedom and alignment for your family, we want to really invite you deeper. So we actually have a bonus video that is going to share with you what we've actually done to create more freedom within our lives and to uncover what's important to us. This video is going to show you the foundations of what actually makes a life of freedom and sovereignty really possible for us to keep following that next right step for us instead of what the world wants of us. It's going to teach you how we've built location independent income, how we've redefined work and education for ourselves and our children, and how we've really created a rhythm that supports our values instead of draining us and leading us into burnout, which doesn't allow us to be the best moms. So in this video, you're going to get access to something that's going to give you mindset support, a discovery and visioning journey to actually get clear on what you even want out of your life, because maybe right now you don't really know. And that's going to help you understand what freedom does look like for you and how you can start building it step by step.
This is not about escaping life. It's about designing it intentionally. It's about families remembering that they have choices, that they can raise their kids in alignment with their values and still thrive financially and spiritually. You'll find the link to that next video below, or you can message us directly for access, because this isn't just our story, it's yours too. Your next chapter starts the moment you decide to follow what's true. So just remember, you don't have to see the whole map in order to take the next right step.
We're so excited for you to dive into that video and celebrating you. Feel free to send us a message and share what you've gotten out of this training. And we're excited to see what's next for you.